Hello, so I'm Liam, the co-founder of inflverse. Just kind of want to set the scene a little bit to start off with, and I think live streaming is an amazing opportunity for creators, brands and esports teams to connect with millions of viewers in real time, build audiences and generate revenue. Whilst it can be lucrative, I think the hundreds if not thousands of hours required to build these dedicated audiences can really take its toll on creators. Today's discussion, we're going to talk about how creators can elongate their careers. Is burnout sort of cutting these short, and if so, how can they be avoided? And then finally, what does this mean for brands and businesses that are looking to build longer term relationships with creators? We'll start off with an introduction to our panel. We'll move on to a moderated Q&A, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. Would you like to jump in with an intro, Drew?
Yeah, hello, I'm Drew. I'm a shareholder and investor in a few companies in gaming and esports, and my day job is I'm VP Growth at a new streaming platform called Noice.
I'm Stodeh, also known, well, Tom, also known as Stodeh. I've been streaming on Twitch for over 10 years, and I'm now multi-streaming on all platforms, so yeah, it's a new endeavor for me. So.
I'm Tess. I look after gaming at PhD Media, and we help brands connect with gaming audiences, particularly if they're non-endemic. But I also dabbled in streaming, so I've got a nice, I never developed, as big of a community probably as you. But we had a little community, and so I kind of know both sides of being a creator and then working with creators.
Thanks. Tom, you touched on then that you've been streaming for the past 10 years. You must be one of the longest standing streamers in the UK. How would you say the space has changed top line in that time?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we've seen change is the shift from just gaming to IRL streaming or just everything else. I would say it's almost like 50-50 IRL streaming versus all games, So it's kind of like a massive thing now that it's not just gaming. I've seen that games themselves, in terms of their popularity, don't last as long. So a lot of streamers are having to be much more versatile in their content. So you can't just be like a one game streamer anymore. You have to be a bit more than that. And you have to be like branching out into other platforms as well. I think that covers a little bit, yeah.
Traditionally, Tess, it's been difficult for brands and businesses to sort of build these live communities. Putting on your agency hat, how would you say that businesses are sort of doing that the best at the moment?
Yeah, so it's something that's definitely developing over the last, I'd say, 3 years. So I think the brand, well, at least I always think of, would be Charlotte Tilbury, and the way that they've set up their own Twitch channel, and they've really invested into the platform and are growing quite organically. But some brands that we're working with have started really understanding the point of a live space and the interaction, the goodwill that you can build. So with the British Heart Foundation, we've been partnering with streamers for them to donate a bit of their Be Right Back screens. And for everyone who completes some CPR training, we gift a sub to that channel, which is not a way I've seen another brand use Twitch or a live platform before, with a really a different way of looking at that kind of space as a media opportunity, and not just like a 2-hour sponsored stream, and it's actually quite low effort. So I think brands are beginning to be less scared of a live environment and actually see the benefits of that engagement and that interaction and sort of like the love that you can build with a community and an audience.
Nice. Touching on audiences quickly, how do you think audiences are sort of utilizing the live space at the moment and engaging with creators and brands?
I think probably for me, when we talk about audiences, the one thing that probably the last 6 months has shown is they want to be where it's relevant. Like when I look at the creators that are succeeding now or have had like a really meteoric rise to the top, we're talking about clippability or whatever term that like becomes social media led in how they distribute content. Like when you look at the rise of someone like Sketch, like we're talking about someone that went from 0 to 100 or whatever number he ended up as, just by like TikTok clips, basically. And I think when we go into later sustainability and diversifying where you get that audience from as a creator, this is part of it, right? Like we're talking about a requirement, a kind of a non-negotiable for creators to be across social media now, not just relying on their platform for discoverability, platforms could do better, don't get me wrong. But I think like for us, I think, as creators, we want to make sure that if we want to control that outcome and attract our own audiences, we have to be like where they're consuming that content in the first place.
Yeah. You touched on meteoric rises. Just as fast as the rise, they do fall in this space, unfortunately. Is it inevitable, or are they missing out on something?
Depends what you mean by fall off. I think when you reach those like peaks, I think if you look at anyone that hits a peak, naturally it has to have some kind of correction. I think for when you talk about audiences, it's also that community you build is the sustainability, right? If you're building a community that you're engaging with, you build a connection with, short and then obviously long term, they stay with you, right? Like that's the beauty of being a creator in the live streaming space, is they will come back day after day, stream after stream, if you build that connection. If it is just a clippability rise to the top and you don't build that connection, then you will see a massive drop off. And I think we are seeing some of that as well. It's like that correction of the peaks and troughs. The troughs are offset by building a community that's close knit.
Tom, you mentioned that you're now a variety platform streamer, in a sense, multi-platform streamer, should I say. Typically, reliability on one platform has been a thing. Normally, somebody is a Twitch streamer or they are a YouTuber. How important do you think sort of diversifying not just your VOD, but also your live content is now for growth?
I mean, as we've seen over the last few years, we saw Mixer come in and we had a few new streamers on that, and then when that crashed, there was almost nowhere for them to go, and that was like, that was a huge, they just had to spread out and just find a platform that worked for them. I think that with multi-streaming now, especially now that it's basically allowed on all platforms, obviously with Twitch saying in the last year, if you've already built up an audience on another platform, it's like, why wouldn't you? And I'm surprised that a lot of YouTubers aren't using that side of their channels, because I think they're so worried about the algorithm and all my videos. I don't want my videos to be affected, but like they should absolutely be using everything in your power to reach as many people as possible, because everything is so fleeting now. So like just being in the eyes of as many people as possible is just as important as focusing on one platform. And yeah, making sure you have at least one other platform so that people have more than one connection to you.
Yeah. I think an interesting point is if you're not online, you're not getting eyeballs unless you have a sort of killer video content strategy. From a creator perspective, this then puts a lot of pressure with them having to do potentially hundreds of hours of live stream in a month. From your point of view, Tess, do brands play a part in this sort of force of streaming for long amounts of hours to, I don't know, meet contract deliverables and not just get eyes on their stream?
So I don't know many brands that request huge amounts of hours for delivering agreed sort of like content. What I would say though is I do think streamers are active participants in their own careers, and they are responsible at the end of the day for managing their time and their energy levels. If you can't do a brand deal, don't do it. And I know that sounds quite harsh, but it's not the brand. The brand doesn't know how many deals you have on. The brand doesn't know your timeline, and you can negotiate. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. If they really want to work with you, they will find a way around it. A lot of brands aren't just cut and dry. And it's at the end of the day up to you to form your own career and make sure you're managing your mental health. I think if you have signed up to something and then find that you can't deliver it, most people are reasonable. And if you speak to whoever's sort of leading that conversation, your side with the brand, and just say, look, for X, Y, and Z, I can't deliver this, there will be a workaround. But my biggest thing is, content creators are adults, and at the end of the day, you are a business, and building that business acumen and confidence to hold your own in a business conversation is so important.
Mm-hmm. From a content creator's perspective, Tom, like with any job, there's peaks and troughs. Burnout is very real for everyone. How have you sort of navigated those cycles and iterated to get through it?
Well, obviously, back 7 years ago, I used to play the same game every day, 8 hours a day for 3 years. And I think, again, as I was saying earlier, that doesn't happen anymore. You can't just play the same game for 3 years because it's already out of the focus. But Yeah, I found that people expect your consistency more than the number of hours that you do. So, as long as you're part of someone's routine, you could stream for 1 hour, and I've seen other streamers literally do 1 hour of that game that they're not so passionate about anymore, and then they move on to something else. But people come every single day to that stream, and obviously, just reducing hours, not changing the schedule, I think is important. Obviously, mixing in other games alongside the game that you play for the most audience. When most people are interested in one thing, you say, oh, now we're going to go and play something else for a bit. But then also collaborating with other people on your schedule. So then you're kind of putting less pressure on yourself to entertain people for a long period of time, and playing with other people that are going to talk, and we're going to have, you're not going to be talking the whole time. You're going to be conversing with them, and that becomes the content. So taking less pressure off yourself and just kind of putting, more time into kind of just creating a group that people want to watch, and that's entertaining in itself as opposed to just the game. So.
Absolutely, and I think platforms play a big part in incentivizing creators to stream more. Twitch had an ads bounty where they basically incentivized creators. If you stream for X amount of hours, a run amount of ads, we'll pay you this amount. And some of them were ungodly amount of hours. From a platform's perspective, is there more that can be done?
Yes. No, I think for us, first of all, contracts for us, the same way that they were when the platforms were throwing out big numbers. For us, we've limited the amount of hours that you're allowed to stream on the platform. So you're physically not allowed to go over a certain amount of hours every month. I think that's a good place that we can have a level of confidence that someone isn't going to go over, what is healthy. And that's person to person as well, right? We work with the creator in question to establish that. I think past that as well, it's around that balance of us taking an ownership of keeping an eye on what creators are doing. It's easy for us when we have, we're in the hundreds or thousands of creators, not millions of creators, but we can take some ownership in spotting, these creators that are going above and beyond. We have the data, we have the metric to say that creators are doing 24-hour streams every 6 days. It's probably an issue, right? Or not an issue necessarily, but something we can say, we can offer ways to do it. It's also about what they can earn in the time that they stream, right? At the end of the day, this is a career for a lot of creators. If they are able to monetize and have more revenue streams within a 4-hour period and make enough to live on and have their livelihood, then that's amazing compared to an 8-hour stream where they would have to do the same amount. So I think for us, it's also about how we give the tools so they can monetize in a short amount of time so they're not pressured to pay their bills by doing additional hours on any given day.
From a creator's perspective, though, and we see it a lot at the moment with Kai Cenat, his biggest growth drivers are his 24-hour, 3-week streams. What are the upsides and downsides in your opinion? And then Tess, from a brand perspective, after Drew, how would you align?
What, of 24-hour streams? I mean, look, whatever works for you, right? Who are we? I mean, I'm talking for a platform side or anyone. Who are we to say what's right and wrong for a creator to do, right? They are the hosts of their own stream, and they should do so as they please. I think it's just about making sure that if we're talking from a health perspective, that there's that sense check in place. Like I said, I think it's an accountability piece. At the moment, platforms are hands-off, right? They let creators do as they please, as they should. But I think there's a point in which you check in, right? You have an open communication line with these creators. Use it, right? Make sure that everything's okay. And like I said, I don't think it should even come to those streams. It should be a case of they don't feel the need to go above and beyond, unless, of course, they want to.
So was the question, how do brands feel about those longer streams? I think it depends on the brand. So for instance, a Boohoo Man loves that kind of culture. They love that, whatever, I'm going to sound so old, whatever the kids like. And whatever their customer base is all for. And you see that with the talent they work with, the message is the medium. Whereas you've got other brands you work with, like the British Heart Foundation, where, they can't be seen next to unhealthy content. Their whole, purpose is to help people live longer, healthier lives. So it really just depends on the brand. And like I said, I think with talent and Twitch and streaming and gaming, the message is the medium. Actually, what games do you want to be around? What do they say about you as a brand? If you want to be seen as dynamic and current, maybe you look at a Valorant. If you want to be seen as, more legacy, you'll look at a game that reflects that a little bit more. And I think also, sorry, this is such a segue, but brands are beginning to come around to actually not all shooters are bad, and it's not that we just have to be in Minecraft, and even although Fortnite's a shooter, there was some cognitive dissonance of, no, but that one's okay, like that, there's no blood in that one, you know. So yeah, I think it just depends on the brand and making sure, like a gaming solution and strategy is not one size fits all. It depends on the audience and the KPIs.
Is there a brand collaboration that you have at the front of your head that really sort of stands out from a live perspective?
I mean, my favorite is the British Heart Foundation one we did. I know it sounds like I keep talking about that one, but we flatlined 14 streamers' live streams to basically replicate, you never know when someone might have cardiac arrest, and you never know when that day may come, so like learn CPR. And someone actually messaged one of the streamers saying they did the training and saved their niece's life. So I don't think you can get a better campaign result than we always say in advertising we're not saving lives, but now we can say we are. So that has to be like my personal favorite one that I've worked on. But I'm also just such a fan of, you know, Charlotte Tilbury. I know I've already mentioned them, but the way they really are committing to the space, and I think a lot of even endemic brands aren't. You know, for a makeup brand to be investing that much in their own stream, I think is really cool.
And Tom, you must have been part of probably hundreds of brand campaigns by this point. Have you got a favorite?
A favorite brand deal? I've not really thought about it. I think I saw your one. I've actually seen that because Two Angry Gamers are on there.
Yes,
so there you go.
They are, yeah.
It's out there.
If you want to be on it too, you can be on it as well.
Oh, maybe,
if you want,
yeah. But yeah, favorite one. Oh, there was the giant one where I had to pretend to. Twitch did one where we had to dress up as King Kong and be on giant controllers. Do you remember that?
Was that a Lego? Was that when they built the Lego? Was it that one?
No. It's basically Tabitha built a giant controller, and we had to literally hold the controllers like this. It was certainly memorable, but I don't. Well, everyone remembered it. I'll say that. But yeah, that was pretty unique. I can't think of any specific ones, to be fair.
Okay, and Drew, putting your agency hat back on now.
I've got so many.
Taking you back a few years.
I've got so many. No, I like a brand deal where it's clearly shown that the brand has watched the content first. And I'm going to give you a really basic example. FIFA Kill is a COD streamer. Drank White Monster on stream for like 6 months, probably longer, right? Raved about it. Never took a penny from them, not sponsored, anything. And then Monster come along and sponsor him. It's perfect. Like, it just writes itself. It's not rocket science. Guarantee the sentiment will be 100%. From a more like creative side, I think I really liked some of the activations that like break the whatever wall it is when you break the digital wall. So we saw like activations where brands will have someone come in and like storm the streamer's room IRL, and like they'll be streaming while they do that. I love that. I think that's exactly what it is. It's a completely new experience. Chat's going crazy. The sentiment will be great because they've gone out of their way. It's not cheap, right? Like, depending on how you do it. But I think anything that showcases that, which I think is a real creative execution, not just put some overlays on, slap a brand logo on, and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Oh, I have another one that I just thought of that's so good. Have you seen the Heinz campaign where they basically identified that people die in video games when they have to eat something. So they basically got the community to make a map of safe spaces that you could have like a bite of your burger. And then they got streamers to stream themselves eating in these safe spaces. That was such a good campaign. Is that your one? Oh, that's so good. We're all just fangirling over each other's campaigns. It's so good.
Tess, from a brand perspective, when you're vetting the creators for the streams or potentially looking for partners, what are sort of the key things that you'll look for in a creator and their content?
Yeah, I mean, this has actually like changed as we've done more and more campaigns. Obviously, audience fit is really important, and you know, the brand suitability, like brand safety for each brand is different. But a new thing has actually been we found different communities have different openness to advertising. So, for instance, I don't want to make sweeping generalizations, but like the strategic card game community are actually so stoked whenever their streamer has a sponsorship, because people often forget about Hearthstone streamers and Magic the Gathering streamers. And so they are so open to brand collaborations, and actually there's a real excitement. Whereas I think the streamers that are constantly saturated with brand deals do begin to get that kind of like, not that it feels inauthentic, but community are like, ah, yes, another stream, or even we found, mods not taking it seriously, and that was the biggest red flag to me when a streamer clearly hasn't communicated to the mods what the expectation of a branded segment is going to look like. So we, and I think it's important for streamers to know that there's someone watching the sponsored stream and they will be taking notes, and it's not that you can't say whatever you want, but just the absolute bare minimum of your mods being on board with this segment. So it really has changed over time, but I think looking for communities where they have a really engaged, viewer base still, like Hearthstone, but they aren't as saturated in brand deals because people are on Twitch because they support their favorite streamer, they donate to them, and so actually to see them succeed and get a brand deal is super exciting, whereas I think when some people have them every single week, it kind of, diminishes the importance of that to the community.
Absolutely, and I think we're lucky to be joined by you guys today and having a perspective from a platform, a creator, and ultimately an agency. And I think shifting to you, Tom, what do you look for in brands when they approach you? And I think it's a hot topic at the moment in terms of how brands and agencies are actually sending briefs out to creators and either how prescriptive they are being or aren't being. For you, what are sort of the green and red flags that you look for?
Just like giving me exactly what you want in bullet points. That's it. That's all I need. Like, if you just give me we want this, 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 and this, I'm like, great, perfect. I can execute that. And obviously also, making sure that it does fit me as a person. So I've had a lot of things where, you'll get loads of mobile games. I barely ever do those because they're just never going to be relatable. But yeah, as long as it's something that I feel that I can work with my audience, this will be like, oh, they'll find this fun. Even if it's not exactly my thing, I can definitely make this work. And I think it's, if you know that you're about to do a stream where no one's going to talk, then you know that you're not doing the right sponsors deal. If you know that I'm going to do this stream, it's going to be an hour of silence, it's probably not the right deal. So it's kind of like, can I make this entertaining no matter what?
In terms of engagement, Drew, how audiences engage with streamers has changed massively over the past 10 years. From how groundbreaking live chat was initially, where you could interact with the streamer there and then, you now have introduced new tools, new incentives. What's next?
I don't think platforms have done enough with engagement, to be honest. You look at the last 10 years and it's a live window with a chat, right? That's it, right? Yeah, predictions, chat predictions, a couple of additional bits, but I don't think there's enough. I'm also selfishly saying that because that's a lot of what Noice is building. But I think from my side, it's giving the tools to creators, not telling them how to use them or what to do with them, but giving them kind of outsourcing creativity and engagement to the creators and giving them new ways to engage with their audience, new ways the audience to, for us, predict things that are coming in the future live, or to interact in new ways, to give the chat more of an identity. At the moment, you're a username in chat, right? Yes, you kind of get noticed if you're a username or you donate or you're a really long-term viewer, but if someone comes into Tom's chat tomorrow, you're not going to know who I am, right? But if I have a really clear identity, a visual identity, and I can engage in new ways, then Tom might know who I am the second time I come in. And if he does and he shouts me out, I'm probably staying around forever. Going back to the first point, that's how you build a community. I don't know if there's enough yet, that's been done on that. I think it will be where a lot of innovation comes in the next 2 to 5 years, is giving audience more ways to interact with the streamer.
Yeah, and from a community standpoint, a lot of brands jump into this space and they'll stick around for a couple of weeks, they'll do a big tentpole moment and then wonder why they don't have a live community. From your standpoint, what are they doing wrong and how can they improve on it?
I don't even know where to start with this one. I'll cover longevity. I think for me, doing a splash in the pan activation, depending on what you're looking for, can work to achieve certain things. But if you're trying to improve sentiment and show brand uplift and actually changing something outside of the 4-hour window you do a sponsored stream, it has to be something that lasts for a long time. It has to be something that the audience understands is going to be there with them on this journey. It also has to be a value exchange, right? This is going back to if the brand are coming in and like brand slapping a logo on a stream, like what's anyone actually getting out of that? Whereas if they're coming in, giving back to the community, you know, there's something that the creator can do to unlock more for the community from a brand, product, digital, whatever it may be, money, then this is how you build these relationships. But that has to be over a longer period of time. I'm not saying it has to be a 3-year period, but it definitely has to be longer than a 1 day off kind of activation, I think.
Both of your mics shot up then as well, so I just wondered if you had anything else to add.
Sorry, it's so hard to hear from over here. Yeah, no, I think we talk about it to brands a lot. Like, listen, when brands get into gaming, they obviously want to do a test. You know, they can't commit to 3 years worth of spend from the get-go. So it's about creating tests that can like live on or that they can extend if they want to. Obviously, like you said, we want to avoid badging. I don't think anything meaningful can really come from that. A lot of the time, like to be completely transparent from like a brand's perspective, gamers are outside of gaming environments quite difficult to reach. They don't watch as much linear television. They do leave the house. They see you're out of home, but that is a myth. But you know, they probably are only getting your social, you're out of home, they're not getting the linear television. So actually the initial test is, are they even receptive to the brand messaging in their environments, and just establishing that as a baseline. And usually from there you get enough insights to then lead to a really interesting campaign. You know, for instance, with the BHF Flatline, people were joking it's like a quick time event. CPR is a real life quick time event. And that's such a great insight to then take into a much longer campaign. So it's a bit of both. Yes, you don't want a badge. And you know, gamers spend thousands and thousands and thousands of hours on their game, and they expect to see the same level of commitment from a brand if you are entering that space. But realistically, budgets don't work that way. So you have to find a nice medium.
Yeah, and obviously a lot of brands in the space do one-offs, either a sponsored stream, sponsored piece of content. They might work with a creator over the course of a month, sometimes over a year, ideally, obviously, if you're a creator. From your perspective, Tom, when a brand does come in and want to do that one-off piece of content, is that a premium? Do you look at that as almost renting your audience? And if they're coming in on a much longer term collaboration, do you look more favorably on it?
Well, I think if you make it a much more long-term agreement, then there is a lot less pressure. Because if you only give them a day to be like, right, prove to me how many clicks you can get, and then you've just got to be like, oh, please click on the link, I hope, as opposed to, I want you to naturally click on the link because the product that I'm, you know, promoting is worth it to you. I want to show you it's worth it to you. So doing things with, obviously, especially with hardware, you know, I'm always talking about hardware stuff anyway, and FPS and maximum performance and stuff. And so that's already a part of my brand. And so the companies that come to me regarding hardware, they go, okay, well, if we work with you for over a month, see how it goes for that first month, and then, you know, talk about it, you know, properly at least once a week, but if you can just mention it, you know, organically. So if it's something that's going to come up anyway, especially if you're playing a new game that has high performance requirements, and then be like, hey, we should sponsor this guy for that first month of that game that he's playing because he's guaranteed to talk about it, and it's going to be organically thinking, oh, and what PC does he use? Oh, there it is. You know, it's just like being able to integrate it into something that's already happening.
Absolutely, and I think communication with brands once you're in that partnership is important, and I think it's actually quite rare for a brand to reach out directly to a creator and sit down and say, what's going well, what isn't, how's this fitting in with your stream? Do you think that's something that they can improve on?
Absolutely, I think I had a lot of times where I'll go through an entire month with a brand, get to the end, and they'll be like, oh, we weren't very happy with the performance. So it's like, well, what part? Was it the, I didn't talk enough about it, that you didn't get enough clicks? It's like, if they come to me after 1 week and say, just letting you know, we've not seen as much traffic to the link, could you possibly maybe just put it more, you know, indirectly, talk about it, maybe just, you know, mention it a bit more often and see if that changes things. And if that doesn't work after 2 weeks, then maybe we'll do something else and see, as opposed to just getting to the end and being like, oh, yeah, sorry, we're not going to go for another month because that didn't work for us. Like, why? Just, you know, if we have communication at least once a week, just checking in, saying what is working, if it is, and what isn't, and then I can work with that as opposed to just getting to the end of the month and being like, well, how'd I do? Because you don't see how many clicks it's got or anything. So.
Absolutely, and I think that test and learn model is really interesting, and again, I don't see that done enough within this space. Tom's definitely echoing points there of coming to the end of an agreement and then them questioning it. From your point of view, Tess, how do you guys currently look at that, and is there any sort of learnings to be had?
Yeah, I think, like you said, I think the best thing you can do at the start is be really clear with what the expectations are of the campaign. And I think too often brands can just say, this is sort of what we want, can you go and do it? And then and also it's not like other social where you get sent the video and then you approve it, like it goes out live, there's not a lot you can do ahead of time unless you've really pre-agreed, the talk. At the same time, you don't want a script. You don't want to just be told, this is word by word what I need you to say. It needs to fit within the feel of your stream. But I think at least being clear on, this is about consideration. We really want you to help your audience understand why this is an important product or why this is an important tool versus actually we're trying to drive sales. So if you could really talk about the link and post that a lot and just being really clear on KPIs and maybe removing some of the business jargon from the conversation because I know that cannot always translate.
Absolutely. And I'm going to wrap up with one final question before we open up to the audience. What is your out there prediction for the next 12 months in the live space? We'll start with you, Drew.
Goodness me. I think in general, because of some of the competitors that have come out the woodwork in the last year and a half, 2 years, that even the mainstream platforms, and therefore all platforms, will be forced to innovate outside of the aforementioned one live window, one chat model. I don't think that's good enough anymore, and I don't think it will continue to scale the industry as we all need it to. So I think the innovation will come from specific parts of different platforms or different ideas, and it will force all boats to rise in that sense. I think it will be led by engagement tools and additional ways to monetize for creators, because there still isn't enough in live. There has to be more ways to create that sustainably, because at the moment it isn't sustainable enough for anyone outside of the top 1 or 0.5%.
Tom?
So I think the biggest thing that's going to happen in the next 12 months is the introduction of AI into everything. So fully AI created games, fully AI created streams, AI tools as well. So obviously there's going to be some good out of it, but a lot of AI assisted tools and in streams. So I've already seen the AI voices and stuff, more of that, and also a push into vertical streaming on all platforms. I think that's going to be to become much more of a focus for those platforms.
Absolutely. Just to jump in there, we could have done a whole panel on AI in content creation and gaming and all that kind of stuff. So maybe next time.
I think building off the AI thing, this might be more like 5 years' time, but I think you're going to see a huge part of Twitch or online streaming is that parasocial relationship, and streamers really fostering that. And I think you will start seeing the larger streamers almost have those AI chatbots where people can, talk to their favorite streamer and befriend them. And I don't know if I like that, but I do think it's going to happen. And the other thing as well is you've seen streamers now for 12 months, within the 12 months range, start monetizing through Discord and actually having their subs via Discord and being paid directly. So a Valorant streamer, Wahujin, does this and does it really well. And I think you're going to see streamers, as they look to monetize, look at these alternative ways of harnessing a community.
Great. Well, thank you guys very much. We'll open up for questions from the audience. Anything agency, content creation, or brands? I think they have a microphone. Should be fine. We good?
He's just checking, guys. Anyone got any questions for the panel? Perfect opportunity to pick their brains.
No problem.
No.
Well, thank you very much, and have a good day.
Thank you.